Welcome to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Coriander, we
Yeah.
are ready. We are ready to go. And look, I'm just going to be honest. I've been really excited to talk about this movie, this classic movie
Hmm.
that I had never either I didn't finish watching it when I was really young. I just didn't remember it, and I'm
This is
almost
my first time viewing also. Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, it was just really, really cool to get a chance to watch such a classic movie, and it's
Yeah.
as good as people say it is. It really is.
It's really good.
I'm just gonna start off with that, man. It's as good as people say it is. We're
Yeah.
gonna be talking about Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1978, which is a remake, and that's
Yeah.
that's the cool thing. It's a remake. I
Hmm.
think the first movie was like in 56 or
50
something like
something.
that.
I thought it was like,
Yeah,
yeah. I was thinking 58, but
yeah,
something
something
like
like
that.
that. Directed by Philip Kaufman, and of course, it's starring the amazing Donald Sutherland, the great Leonard
Yeah.
Nimoy, Brooke Adams, the great
Hmm.
Jeff Goldblum. Everybody was great. Veronica Cartwright.
Yeah.
Just a who's who of just great actors and actresses. And man, let's just get into this thing, man. I'm hyped up. Um, let's start from the beginning. The movie starts off, and you really don't know what to expect with a movie like this because you're basically talking about an alien invasion. And anytime you have an alien
Yeah.
invasion type of movie, it could go one of two ways. It could be very well done, or it could
Hmm.
be really cheesy and
Bad.
campy and all that
Yeah.
type of stuff. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yep.
But I think the strength of this movie is the fact that you've got that tension within the film that carries all the way through because you don't
It
know
does.
who's who,
Yeah.
so to speak, you know?
Hmm.
And so I think that was something that was very, very good in this movie. The tension, the distrust, the paranoia. I mean, it was just flooded with that. And things like this movie remind me of other favorites of mine, like John Carpenter's The Thing. I
Hmm.
mean, movies like that when they're really well done, it's a treat, man. But like I
Yeah.
said, you've got a great cast. Donald Sutherland, you know, God, man. I mean,
He's
I've always
awesome.
yeah. I mean, I've always liked him and his
Hmm.
movies, but in these last couple of weeks, and we'll be talking about one of his other movies that we just got a little deep into as well. But these last couple of weeks, man, my admiration for him has really grown so much more. He's just so amazing in this movie. And you also have Brooke Adams. These two were the leads. I think she was great in
Yeah.
this too. Of course, she's famous from things like The Dead Zone, co-starring with Christopher Walken and things like that.
Hmm.
So I think she was really great as the lead actress in this movie. But
Hmm.
you got these beings, these gelatinous beings that come to Earth. They flee from their home world because it's inhabitable or something like that, and they come to Earth and you see them coming down into San Francisco, and you don't really understand what's going on at first if you've never seen the movie, right? And then you
Hmm.
start to realize that they are, basically invading the ecosystem and they're
Yeah.
attaching themselves to plant life.
Hmm. From the very beginning, like when credits are still rolling, you see them floating these weird, see-through things floating through
Right.
the air.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those
so
are
it's
the
not
yeah.
like your typical alien either,
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Good point. Absolutely. So it's even more creepy that way because and, they
right?
even reference it later on in one and actually one of it's funny you say that because in one of the scenes that I'm hoping to play, I think it was Veronica Cartwright was talking about we've always expected them to come in metal ships, but what if this is
Right.
the way that they're going to get us is by basically disrupting our ecosystem, and we eat junk, we breathe junk, and we would never know,
Hmm.
which is of
Right.
course what happens in the movie. It's crazy. But you've got Brooke Adams again. She's one of the leads, her and Donald Sutherland, and she's basically a scientist, laboratory scientist at the health department. She's a
Yep.
co-worker of Donald Sutherland's character,
Hmm.
and her name is Elizabeth. and she brings one of the flowers home. She lives with her boyfriend Jeffrey, who, of course, now let's just back up because I know you're a big fan of some of his movies. We've been wanting to talk about The
The
Brood
Brood.
and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So hopefully we'll get a chance to talk
Hmm.
about that soon. But he's been in some nice movies. But she
He
brings
has.
the pod home or the plant home,
Hmm.
and she goes to sleep, and it's on the nightstand beside her boyfriend and not her. And the next morning, this is what happens. She wakes up, and he just has this different type of demeanor, and he's
Hmm.
sweeping up some glass, which we assume is the vase that the plant was in, and also some dirt like substance, right? We don't know what that is yet, but yeah, it was creepy as hell. What did you first of all, what did you think of this whole scenario, how it was playing out when she's trying to figure out what's different about him?
Yeah, well, she could just, it's kind of funny because she could tell pretty much instantly from the moment she talked with him.
Mhm.
He was cold, you know,
Yes.
he didn't seem like, she said, like she was telling to Matthew, she didn't seem like himself.
Yes,
So
yes, absolutely.
yeah, I thought this was great because eh, like I said, I mean, I've really haven't seen too many besides like the blob and the stuff. You know, how many plant form aliens, you know? Well, I guess there has been some, but it's
Yeah.
just I love the concept of this movie. It's really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. And she thinks she knows something is up. I mean, and she's
Yeah.
spying on him and things are just not adding up. So the paranoia starts pretty much from the get-go of this movie, which was really, really great. And I think
Mhm.
Brooke Adams did a hell of a job showing that, and the
She
director,
did.
Philip, yeah, and Philip Kaufman actually had said that he told the actors that you've got your dialogue, but there's a lot of human emotion and expressions and stuff that I want you guys to experiment with in between your dialogue. And I think that that was a hell of a thing to tell the actors because all of these actors in this movie had a lot of like realness to them. Like watching this movie, it
Mhm.
almost seemed like a not a documentary, but it seemed very real. They seemed like they were very
Yeah.
real people.
Mhm.
And credit to the director and also the actors and actresses. But anyways, she goes to Matthew, who's her friend and coworker, played by the legendary, the cool Donald Sutherland. And he was just so great in this movie. He just had the charisma. He was funny. He was just a very cool. He's the type of character, Coriander. I could have watched a whole nother movie with just his character just doing shit. That's how cool he was in this movie. I'm serious.
Yeah.
This is prime Donald
He's a
Sutherland,
great
man.
actor. So
He
yeah.
is, man. He really, really is. And he had that scene. Actually, let me go back to the other picture. She comes to him and says, "Hey, something's going on with Jeffrey. He doesn't
Mhm.
seem right," and so forth. And the way Donald Sutherland's Matthew handles it is having compassion, being a friend, but
Mhm.
also trying to get her mind off of it. He's cooking dinner. He's like, hey, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a beautiful night. Let's go on the porch and eat and that type of thing. And he's just so cool.
Mhm.
But she reveals to him, I believe it's the following day, that she actually followed Jeffrey around the city
Mhm.
and saw him meeting up with different people at the parks and that, and everybody seemed to have this sense of awareness, like they knew each other, even though they
Mhm.
shouldn't. And so she's
Right.
putting two
And
and
she
two
even was
together.
saying that, yeah, and Matthew was like, "Well, did you recognize any of these people?" And she's like, she didn't know any of them.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah, yeah. So everything's ramping up. But the cool
Mhm.
thing about Matthew is he's the first thing he's thinking about is his friend, his colleague. And he's like, "Well, do
Mhm.
you want to talk to my friend, Dr. Kibner?" And she knows that Dr. Kibner is a psychiatrist. And he's like, "Well,
Mhm.
don't think of it in those terms. Just think of it, he's an intelligent man, a very intelligent man that can help you put
Mhm.
some perspective to your concerns."
I don't need a psychiatrist.
Just forget that he's a psychiatrist. Just think of him as a very intelligent man, which is what he is. It's a book party. He's a celebrity. He's very famous, and you will really like him if you just forget that you think he's a psychiatrist.
And I was like,
Yeah.
this guy, look,
He's good.
He is so good. It's like
Right?
it's like you should be a psychiatrist with that word lingo, you're throwing out there. But
Mm,
you have that wonderful scene where he brings Elizabeth to a book signing that his
mhm.
friend Dr. Kibner is giving. And this was such a great scene, Coriander. I love this
Yeah.
scene. So many great scenes. But in this scene, we get to see Jeff Goldblum's character,
Mhm.
who
Yep.
he just pops up out of no one. He plays Jack Belichick, and he's like a poet and a struggling writer himself, and
Mhm.
he's look, he's playing the ultimate Jeff Goldblum at this moment, and this is 1978. So it's funny how this was an early role for him, and he was still kind of playing Jeff Goldblum, but it's cool though because
Mm,
only he can do it. Only he can do
right?
it. But it's a great thing back and forth with Jeff Goldblum and Donald Sutherland, and then you've got Brooke Adams, who's still concerned about her boyfriend, and all the while you've got people looking around and they just look so suspect. It's really creepy as hell.
Mm,
You don't know who to trust because at this point, something is going on. And of
mhm.
course, Dr. Kibner is played by the legendary Leonard Nimoy, who,
Yeah.
as a Star Trek fan, I mean, good God, man, this movie couldn't get any cooler, you know? And but it's an interesting scene because there's a lot of back and forth, and Donald Sutherland is trying to put Brooke Adams' character, trying to reassure her, and
Mhm.
she's not really buying it. So I just thought it was a great scene back and forth between all of these actors. What
Yeah.
did you think of the scene?
Well, not only that, but the lady that Dr. Kibner's talking to is she's
Hmm.
trying to say, "Look, my husband's different, just like
That's right.
how Elizabeth
Hmm.
feels."
I just say one thing?
Please. Catherine. All right, just a minute. Just a minute. Catherine. Just give me a minute, will you? Just a minute. Will you trust me? Will you please?
And so
Yes.
once she heard that, she's like,
Hmm.
"Ooh," she went over to try to talk to her,
Yes.
and Kibner was like, "No, stay away."
Hmm.
And
Yep.
yeah, it was a good scene,
It
because then you
was.
did realize that, wow, there is definitely something going on.
Yeah, because and also Donald Sutherland took his clothes to the cleaner,
Yes. Yep.
and the lady owner was acting kind of odd, and then when he was about to leave, the husband said, "Are you a doctor?" And he says, "No, I'm a civil servant. I work for the health department." And he said, "My wife not right. My wife is not,
Yeah.
he's like, "Is she sick?" He's like, "No, that's not my
She's
wife.
different.
She's not right."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
again, the pieces of the puzzle are there, you know what I'm saying? But
Mhm.
long story short, Leonard Nimoy playing Dr. Kibner tries to help Elizabeth with her concerns about Jeffrey and tries to put her at ease and all these types of things. And so you
Mhm.
have that scene where they play that out while they're walking to the car. And again,
Mhm.
just great acting from these folks. But
Yeah.
this is the part where it really takes the left turn, Coriander, because now we're about to see some hard-nosed proof of the invasion because Matthew is going to take Elizabeth home and just let her rest because Dr. Kibner gave her, I think he gave her something to help relax her, like a sedative or whatever. So
Mhm.
he takes her home and she's home resting with quote unquote Jeffrey, and then it cuts from there, okay? And then you've got this whole scene where Jeff Goldblum's character goes to the mud baths. Him and his her I'm sorry, him and his wife, played by Veronica
Mhm.
Cartwright, they own a mud bath place, and so he goes there to try to relax. And this brings up a whole nother thing going on, which I thought was
Yeah.
really really cool. And it was creepy too, man, because he obviously had a hard day. He just wants to relax, and she's like, "Yeah, relax." And you got a couple people that are chilling out in the mud baths. This guy right
Right.
here, reading this book, check out the name of this book, Worlds. I think it's called Worlds Colliding, or Worlds to Collide, or Collision, or something like that.
Something. Yeah.
But anyways, foreshadowing is what I'm getting
Mm.
to. And so then Veronica Cartwright, with some of the best reactions of any actress in the world, sees a body that is being formed. and we start to
Yeah.
see actual evidence of the invasion. I mean, it looks like it's unformed. It's gross, but that's
Mhm.
not even the worst part, Coriander. It's a duplicate of Jeff Goldblum. And it's
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh. And so, anyways, while that's happening, you've got Donald Sutherland who realizes that he has to go and check on Elizabeth. He tried to call her, she's not answering the phone. Like she started to
Mhm.
pick up the phone, and this is the thing that happens when these people are being taken over. Their faces start to get all like dried out. Is that the way that
Yeah,
you saw it? Okay.
definitely. Yep.
Okay. And you can see kind of the flakiness on her face and
Yeah.
all. This was a
Mhm.
great movie with great practical effects, by the way. I mean, this is
It really
1978.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everything is in camera. So,
Mhm.
and another thing I wanted to point out too, before he goes to, well, he thinks he's going to be checking on Elizabeth, but really he's going there to save her because she's falling asleep. And what we find out is when you go to sleep, and if you're in the vicinity of a pod, that's when you
Yeah.
get taken over. And it's
Yep.
basically draining their life force,
Mhm.
as the duplicate is being formed and gaining
Mhm.
strength, the human is losing their life force. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
it's really, really creepy stuff. And
Yeah.
we start to see a lot of these images of these trash trucks that have all this
Mm.
like weird it's like what's the word I want to use? Almost like dust like substances and stuff that it's
Yeah.
compacting. And
Mhm.
we don't really know what that is at first, but we f- we find out the hard way, so to speak. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously he's got to go and save Elizabeth. It was a really really creepy scene because Jeffrey is taken over and he's just kind of
Mhm.
he wants her to change. And I mean, good God, man, that's just a scary concept. But when Donald Sutherland
Right.
goes, yeah, when Donald Sutherland goes to the house, he actually sees her duplicate that is being
Mhm.
formed.
Elizabeth, wake up. Wake up.
I mean, creepy stuff, man. I mean, but the effects, the practical effects is just so, it's I wouldn't say that it's simple. People may think that today, but it's done so very well. What did you think of the
Yeah.
effects?
Hey, I love effects in these 70s and 80s horror movies that I
Hmm.
enjoyed it,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Yep.
I thought the effects in this were really good.
I agree. But he sees her double and he's like, I've got to save her. So he actually grabs her and he
Mhm.
takes her out of the house. And you can hear at one point, Jeffrey is doing this shrieking noise. So obviously,
Yeah.
it lets you know for sure that he's not human. And so
Mhm.
then this is when the movie it really had stepped into a second gear to me. It was great up to this point, surely, but now it moved into
Mhm.
a different gear. So he takes her back to where Jeff Goldblum and Veronica Cartwright are, and they're just
Mhm.
trying to make heads or tails of this thing. And she realizes that she was almost taken over by one of these pods.
Yeah.
So they figure, well, let's call in Dr. Kibner, because
Mhm.
he's a trusted friend of Matthews. He's a smart guy. He's got connections through
Yeah.
the city and this and that. So they go through this and that, and they have this wonderful scene where Leonard Nimoy is sitting on a couch, and he's the psychiatrist, right? But he's
Mhm.
he's laying on the couch like he's the patient, and he's
Right.
trying to understand what they're talking about because it is so fantastical to believe it, and he was just there to help, like he said, you guys called me
Yeah.
to come over and help, and I just can't buy into what you're saying. But all of these
Yeah.
actors, Veronica Cartwright especially was really good in the scene and talked about the
Mhm.
idea that maybe we won't be invaded
Aliens.
by aliens and metal ships. But
Yeah.
long story short, we now see what's going on, with
Mhm.
Donald Sutherland, Brooke Adams, Jeff Goldblum, and
Mhm.
Veronica Cartwright. Now, Leonard Nimoy came there to help, and when he goes outside to talk to Donald Sutherland, he's like, "Well, what do you want to do?" And Donald Sutherland's like, we gotta alert the city. We gotta alert it like if there was a pandemic or something. Interestingly enough, to be talking about nowadays. Um,
Right.
and Leonard Nimoy is like, "Hey, you're my friend. I'm gonna do whatever I can do to help you. Let me know what I can do." And then Leonard Nimoy, he's like, "Call me," and he starts walking away. The camera work in this movie too was just so fantastic. So many
Yeah.
cool shots in this movie. They really, really were. But then
Mhm.
Coriander, he gets into a car, and guess who's in the car? Jeffrey and
Yeah.
this other guy that we know was acting weird. So in other words, Leonard Nimoy is a duplicate. It's
Is with
like,
them, right? If he was
what?
saying sooner the better to get these
Oh my
guys
god.
changed.
Yes.
And before he was
Yes.
leaving, he was even saying, "Get rest, get some sleep."
Yes. He kept talking about get some rest. You've been fighting
Mhm.
this. You've done all you can. Get some sleep. It's crazy,
Yeah.
man. It's crazy. But what I want to jump to as we head into the last third of the movie here is, so you basically got this group, and I really loved all these characters, and these actors had
Mhm.
some great chemistry with each other, especially obviously Donald Sutherland and Brooke Adams. But
Yeah.
they're at Matthew's place, and they're just chilling. And as far as I know, I can't remember if they already knew that sleep was basically their pathway to doom or not, but I think 3 out of 4 of them started to fall asleep except for Veronica Cartwright. And you
Yep.
have that fantastic scene. You gotta tell me
Yeah.
what you thought about this scene, Coriander, because Donald Sutherland was on his porch falling asleep, in his reclining chair or whatever, and there's a
Mhm.
pod right there. What did you think of this scene? How it played out? It was so awesome.
It was cool because you were actually seeing these people being birthed, yeah, and you
Mhm,
could kinda
mhm.
tell how the flower was opening and, it just looked, that, yeah, something was gonna come out of it. And, yeah, when
Yeah,
you saw the other bodies and it was just crazy. It was
it
crazy,
was.
and it makes you think like, "Wow, if this shit really happened, but there's no way to unless there's really no way to stop it, honestly, because this
Yeah.
is almost like Halloween 3. Was it really a happy ending?
Mhm, mhm.
No. Just like, was this one? It's like, yeah, it's just crazy shit.
Yeah. I
So,
mean, like you said, it's literally showing how these pod people come to be, and basically
yeah.
as they gain strength. And I want to actually backtrack too. In the bathhouse, the mud house, um,
Mhm,
when Jeff Goldblum's duplicate opened his eyes,
mhm,
Jeff Goldblum had closed his eyes falling asleep. So it's almost like
mhm.
this yin and yang, you know what I mean? And then when
Yeah,
Veronica Cartwright woke Jeff Goldblum up, as soon as he woke up, the duplicate's eyes shut. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah.
it's so damn creepy, and it's the effects and what they're showing is very subtle in a way, especially by today's standards.
Mhm.
But I think it's so much more effective because it's like creepy. It kind of
Yeah,
catches you off guard, but
yeah,
anyways.
and you get those people telling you, it's just like a rebirth, you keep your
Yes.
memories, you keep
Mhm.
all that, you just don't feel emotion, love,
Right.
and it's like, wow, why would you
Mhm.
that would be, yeah, crazy.
Yeah. It was creepy, man. But what's
Mm,
even worse is Donald Sutherland is about to be taken over, and it was
mhm,
really creepy, and Veronica Cartwright wakes him up and says, they're being formed all around you, and it was duplicates of Jeff Goldblum and also of
yeah,
Brooke Adams. So he wakes
yeah,
up, he wakes up, he says, "Wake up the others." And so now they understand about the whole sleep thing. And
mhm,
then they realize that they're surrounded. His place is surrounded. They try to call out for help, and like the operator is talking to him, like, "Yes, Mr. Bennell, we'll be ready to help you." And he's like, "How did you know my
right,
name? I didn't give you my name."
yeah,
Now I will say, Donald Sutherland is cool as shit in this movie,
mhm,
but he was a little slow, the uptake a little
yeah,
bit. I,
Jack's
that
like, "Hang up."
Yeah, Jack's like, "Hang it up, hang it up." I'm like,
Yeah,
right? Hang that thing up, man. But anyways,
yeah,
so he's like, "We gotta run, we gotta leave." So they try to they're gonna escape. before he does it, he destroys his duplicate. Great practical effects scene. I mean, it looks so gross.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen a lot of horror movies, a lot of sci-fi movies, and I gotta admit, this one made me,
It was
cringe a little
juicy.
bit. It was great. So they're
Right.
running, but Coriander, just like when we talk about a zombie movie, numbers count. Like, can you ever truly win? You know what I'm saying? Even if you survive an attack, even if you go someplace that might be safe for a while, if you're the only person left, or
Mm-mm.
just a handful of people left, what kind of life can you lead? That's what's starting to happen in this story. You can
Yeah.
see, the pieces falling together, and they're running some great fantastic shots again of the pod people
Mm-hmm.
chasing them. And then you have that scene where the four of them, they get separated. Jack decides to form a distraction, and of
Mm-hmm.
course Veronica Cartwright runs after him, and it's like, oh man, don't do that. So you figure they're dead, they're gone, man. And the pod people chase them. And then you got
Mm-hmm.
Donald Sutherland and Brooke Adams that run to the lab, and they're just trying to figure out a way to stop this. Donald Sutherland said that many times in this movie, I'm gonna fight it. We have to stop it, and this and this and that.
Mm.
But they're still being followed, man. And you have that scene where Leonard Nimoy comes to the lab, and right behind him is Jeff Goldblum. And I'm like, no, they got Jeff Goldblum. And Leonard Nimoy is basically like, we're going to give you a sedative. You have to sleep.
Yeah.
And like you said, some of the things that they were saying it was just so cold. It doesn't hurt. You'll still have your mind and your memories. You'll be reborn
Mm.
into a world without hate, without love, without feeling. And another thing that was really creepy is Elizabeth says, "But what will happen to us?"
Please, we'll leave the city. Please, Jeffrey.
David, please let us go. We
Let
won't
us
tell
go
him.
to the city.
You don't have to leave the city. Nothing changes. You can have the same life, the same clothes, the same car.
But what happens to us?
And he says something like, in a few minutes you won't even think about that, or something like that. Basically, the
Yeah.
human shell dies, and we'll get a chance to see that pretty soon in the story, which was another big moment. But
Mm-hmm.
fortunately, before Leonard Nimoy gives them the sedative, they had taken some speed because they knew they had to stay awake. So they
Yeah.
shot themselves up with some speed so that they would, get the adrenaline and all that stuff going. So, long story short, they get out of the lab. They Donald Sutherland kills Jeff Goldblum, and they
Mm-hmm.
lock Leonard Nimoy in the freezer. And they're leaving, and then they run into Veronica Cartwright on the stairway, and it was a great moment because it's like, okay, who's who, who's a pod person, who's
Right.
not. And
Yep.
she says, I lost Jack, I don't know where he went. And of course Donald Sutherland was like, how did you come in here without being noticed? And she
Mm-hmm.
says that the pod people can be fooled, you just have to show no emotion. So
Yep.
they kind of go with that, and they figure they're going to leave and try to escape. The whole idea from here on out is escape, because most of the town, if not all of the town, have been duplicated. And so they're
Mm-hmm.
walking on the street. You see tons of people carrying pods, which that was another creepy thing, man. They're carrying pods, basically to either send to other people or to their loved ones, the
Mm-hmm.
rest of their family. Creepy, creepy imagery, man. But they're
Yeah.
walking down the street trying to show no emotion. And then you got that scene with the mutant dog.
Yes. If
Oh my
only friggin'
God.
Elizabeth kept her cool, they would have been okay. But
Yes,
no.
she saw that thing, and she started to scream, which I don't
Scream.
I don't blame her, man. And of
Hey.
course the pod
For your
people noticed.
survival, it's like bite your tongue, you know? Keep
Yes,
your mouth
yes,
shut.
absolutely. But then here comes the really heartbreaking part of the story. They run away from the pod people. They get into a taxi, and we find out that the taxi driver is also one of the pod people, but they escape
Yeah.
that too. So it's like they were so many close calls. And then Donald Sutherland sees a boat. He's like, a ship, this will be our way to escape. He comes up to the boat. He tells Elizabeth, here, you stay here. And right
Hmm.
before that, too, she also hurt herself. She hurt her ankle.
Yeah, she hurt
So
her
she
ankle. Yep.
So she couldn't really walk. So he says, well, you stay here. I'm going to check out this ship. This is going to be our way to get out of here and escape. So he runs, whatever it was, 200 feet away from her to check out this ship. And he sees the reason for the ship being there is to
Yeah.
distribute more pods.
Mhm.
What?
They're
That's
gonna take over the
crazy.
planet.
Right? But one of the saddest scenes, man, was the one that came afterwards, because he comes back to the little wooded area where Elizabeth was. He finds her asleep.
He shouldn't
Oh
have left her.
man. Tell me
I
what you
said
thought
that.
about this scene.
He was stupid to leave her. He knew how tired she was. She kept saying, "I can't, I can't stay awake. I'm
Yep.
tired."
hmm
And the fact that he did, it's like, oh, dude, it
Yeah,
was
I
stupid.
mean, and you really did feel these two cared for each other, and she
Yeah,
even told him that she loved him,
yeah, she did.
especially in that scene where Leonard Nimoy shot them with the sedative.
Yep.
And but I also think they wanted to hold on to feelings, because that's what these pod people were about, no emotion. So it was almost
Mhm.
like they were trying to hold on to any human feelings that they felt. But he holds Elizabeth, trying to wake her up and saying, the ship is here. We're almost going to make it. We're almost going to make it. Wake back up. I love you. I love you. Donald Sutherland was fantastic in this scene. I'm not doing it any
Mhm.
justice. For you guys who have not seen this movie, please check it out. Please check it out. But um, this was one of the saddest points in the movie, because all of a sudden you see Brooke Adams, you see her eyes kind of open a little bit, and her
Mhm.
face is all kind of dry and flaky, and all of a sudden you hear this cracking. And Coriander, I'm
Yeah.
gonna tell you what, this scene was not only creepy and gross, but so sad, because he's holding her
Yeah.
and her body starts to crumple and disintegrate.
Mhm. Mhm.
I couldn't believe it. I'm like, oh my God. And he screams in terror. The look on his face is just, he's bewildered. And then all of a sudden, like 10 feet away, the duplicate of her
Reappeared. Yep.
reappears, and she's like, Matthew, they were right. It's painless. It's good. Come
Mhm.
back here, Matthew. Come back here. Join me. Join me. And she's talking, in a different tone, because she's a duplicate with no emotion. It was
Mhm.
so creepy and so sad, because he loved her, and
He
of
did.
course now there's nothing. So he
Mhm.
runs. He goes to where the warehouse is. There's a warehouse by that ship, and that's where they're cultivating the pods to put them on the ship to send them all across the world. And so he figures, hey man, I got to do what I got to do. I'm going to try to take out as many pods as I can. And he does take
Yeah.
out a couple hundred pods. But,
Yeah, he did.
it's like, well, dude, you got to figure out some other game plan too, because now you're alone. And even Elizabeth, the
Mhm.
duplicate, she comes to the warehouse too and basically says, hey, there he is. And they let out
There
that
he is.
screech, that,
Right?
you know. And it's so damn creepy
Yeah.
when it happens. And
Yeah.
so they're chasing him, and he kind of hides, like it's like this little gully where there's some stairs, and he tries to hide and this and that. And they're running, and these pod people aren't that smart, though, I will say, because they were eluded a lot. But
Mhm.
he's hiding, and then it kind of fades, and it's the next day, and you see him walking, through the city. And Donald Sutherland is a great actor, because he's looking around, trying to hold in his emotion and not give
Mhm.
himself away. And he goes to work. He goes to the laboratory, and he sees Elizabeth is there. No
Yeah.
emotion. I mean, this is her duplicate. No
Mhm.
emotion, no nothing. And he's just beside himself. He sees her walk down the hallway, and you had that scene where it looked like he was going to say something to her. And then,
Mhm.
Coriander, this is it. One of the final scenes in the movie, he's walking down the street, and I think they were basically trying to show that he was going to say something to Elizabeth but didn't. So he's walking down the
Yep.
street, and spoilers, guys, if you didn't know this, I mean, the movie is 45 years old or whatever, so you should know
Right.
this. But he's walking down
We
the street.
didn't though.
Well, right? He's walking down the street, and Veronica Cartwright's character comes up to him. Now, at this point, you're wondering, wait a minute, how could she find him? What's going on? And she says to him, Matthew, Matthew, I made it. I made it, you know, and I'm still here and blah blah blah. And all of a sudden, Donald Sutherland looks at her, and you're just
Mhm.
waiting to see what's going to happen. And Coriander, what does Donald Sutherland do? He points to
Free.
her and shrieks,
Yeah.
"What? He's a
Yeah.
pod person."
Yep.
Wow, man, the way he played it, the way that the movie played it, you had no idea. You really thought that he had survived that night, you know. And she can't
Mhm.
believe it either. And again, shout out to Veronica Cartwright. She's screaming. She doesn't know what to
Yeah.
do. She's basically screwed. And the movie just zeroes in on Donald Sutherland's face as he's still doing that shrieking noise. And it just goes and it cuts to black.
Yeah. It's great. Right?
Classic
It
movie,
was.
guys.
It
This
is. Yes.
Listen, I'm going to tell you
Yeah.
what, and we've watched a lot of good movies that we've talked about on the channel, and a lot of
Mhm.
great movies that, you know, we've loved for years, even before we were doing this
Mhm.
YouTube thing. This movie immediately shot up to the top of my favorite movies, just like that.
Yeah. It's
I
really
mean,
good.
seriously. And we've
Mhm.
usually talked about some of the best remakes of all time. We talk about the golden 80s, where the best three remakes
Yeah.
was The Fly, The Thing, The Blob. Guess what,
Yeah.
Coriander? There's a
Now
fourth
this.
movie on that list. Invasion
Right?
of the Body Snatchers from
Yep.
1978. Wow. And there's four versions of Body Snatchers. There's the one from 58. There's this one
Mhm.
from 78. There was Body Snatchers, I believe it was 93. And then
Mhm.
there was The Invasion. I think that was in like the early or mid 2000s with Nicole Kidman and Daniel Craig. That one was kind of, you know, but anyways,
Yeah.
this
I
movie
haven't seen
would,
any of those either.
man, well, this is the one that you need to see because this one
Yeah,
was
it is.
absolutely
Mhm.
fantastic.
Right.
Fantastic. I could just keep saying that, but I'm not going to keep saying. But tell me as we close this out because we've been gushing over this thing. But you've seen a lot of movies. I mean, does this really shoot up there for you, or you know, especially? I know you love The Thing, and you guys
Yeah.
know anyone that's watched this channel, you know, I absolutely love The Thing. To me, this
Mhm.
movie is right in that little circle of movies that are just. And me and Killian always say there's no perfect movie, but these are
You
those
know,
types of
for
movies that are pretty much like perfect.
yeah, yeah, for an alien movie, this is really good.
Hmm.
Like I said, usually you have some sort of alien something, but this is just a plan, and
Hmm.
it did so much destruction. I mean, it could take over the world,
Hmm.
and yeah, it's just I love alien movies anyway, and when they're good ones. And
Hmm.
like you, I wish I would have seen this years ago because
Yeah.
yeah, this is one where you could watch and watch again. So,
Yeah, it's very
yeah,
rewatchable.
so good.
Very,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, guys, if you have not seen this movie, you're doing yourself a disservice, especially if you're a sci-fi fan or horror fan, Donald
Yeah.
Sutherland fan, a Jeff Goldblum fan. This is a great movie, like from beginning to end. It
Leonard
truly
Nimoy.
is. Leonard Nimoy,
Yeah.
all of them. Veronica
Yeah.
Cartwright, Brooke
Yeah.
Adams. Brooke Adams, you know, I mean, she did some stuff afterwards, you know, and she's done TV stuff too. But
Mhm.
man, she was masterful in this movie. She really
She
was.
was.
And you really cared about these characters. Like I was really, you know, like distraught as they kind of
Yeah.
felt succumbed one by one. I was like, man, that's
Yeah.
that's how you know it's a good movie if you care about the characters like that.
Right?
You know, absolutely. So, anyways, but guys, let us know what you think of Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1978. Is it a great movie to you? What do you like about it? What are your favorite scenes or characters? And if you haven't seen it, are you going to? It's a great movie. I would definitely recommend it. But let us know in the
Yeah.
comment section what you think. Please give the video a like. It would really help to support us, and we'd appreciate it. And yeah, Coriander, this has been fun. Also, we want to say a happy New Year's
Happy New
to
Year.
folks.
Right.
Yeah, this
Yeah, have
video
a
is
safe New
pre-recorded.
Year's. Yeah. Especially if you're
Yeah,
going out, partying. They're even saying don't do it, but if you are, be safe.
Absolutely. Yeah. So definitely take it easy and we will catch you guys later. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you are the Night Watch. Peace out, guys. Happy New Year.
No, church.